Hey guys, it's Matthew. Today I'm going to talk to you about my favorite rod, reels, and line. First I'm going to start off with the rod. These are swim bait specific. This here is a Daiwa DX fastback, so it's got a very nice action to it when you're fighting a fish and when you set the hook. I've had this rod specifically for about a year and a half now. I've caught a lot of fish on it. I put my rods through a lot more than most people do. I've taken it to the coast with me and I've fished off the jetties for kingfish, and it's showing no wear and tear after being put through all that. That's the same rod that I have on this one, and every single other, there's one, two, those are both other Daiwa DX. I know a lot of people who have thrown very expensive rods, top of the line swim bait rods, and they say that the Daiwa DX is where it's at. Now my favorite reels, obviously the Curado's always had a really big name for itself. This is a Curado 301. I'm left-handed, so 301. This reel was also there at the coast with me in the salt water. It's been beat down and it's still holding up very well. There's no signs of struggle when I use it. This one I have is specifically 641. Shit, I don't think it's a 641. I think it's a 621. And this one I have is a medium gear ratio. A lot of people like to use really slow gear ratios. Definitely a Curado 301. It's a very, very good reel. Now my second favorite, which is an absolute beast of a reel, is a Komodo 364 LX. They also call it a Komodo 350. This reel supposedly has 22 pounds of drag. I've never fought a fish on this with lockdown drag, so I wouldn't really know if that's what it is. I don't doubt it, I'm sure it is. It's got a very nice scheme to it. I've never been a really round profile guy. I did buy a few and they just felt weird to me when I was trying to crank in fish. So I started searching for low profile swim bait reels. The 301 was my first purchase and I do not regret it whatsoever in the least bit. The Komodos I've had for a while now. They cast very far and they feel like a beast of a reel. I actually can't wait to take it to the coast and fight some big old fish with it, because I know it's capable of much more than I'm putting it up against with these bass. My favorite line, I really have two. One I have to put in there just because it's what I was raised on, and it's never failed me. I've watched my dad catch huge stripers on it. At the coast, I catch huge redfish on it, kingfish on it. It's gonna have to be the Trilene Big Game. I know it's not an expensive line. You get a lot of line for pretty cheap on the spool. Most people probably overlook it, but I've used this line my whole life, and I've watched people use this line my whole life, and it's very reliable. I still use it. That's what I've got on my Curado 301. Now my second favorite is something I started using just about a year ago after watching Southern Trout Eaters, the P-Line CXX. It's very tough. Sometimes if you leave it in a certain position too long, it'll kink up in that position, depending on how sharp of a position you leave it in. But normally if you just pull it pretty tight, it'll stretch back out. Just a quick rerun. My favorite rods are the Daiwa DXs. Of course, you get the action and whatnot to match the bait you're throwing. Same for pound test line. You don't want your pound test overpowering your lure. Say you're throwing 25-pound test and you got on a 68. That's way too heavy for a 68. If you're throwing a 68, I myself throw it on 17, just as the same as you normally throw like a medium heavy action swim bait rod. You want everything to flow in proportion. You don't want the line overpowering the bait, but you don't want the bait too heavy for the line, and you don't want the bait overpowering the rod or the rod being underpowered. My favorite reel, the Curado 301. I'm actually not left-handed, I'm right-handed. I prefer the rod in my right hand. That way it does you know what I'm trying to do with my bait. It does my hook set, and when I'm cranking in a big fish, I've got the main thing in my strong hand, and I've got my weak hand to do the simple task of turning a handle. So the first one, a 301. The second one, a Komodo 364 LX, once again, lefty. And my favorite line, Big Game and P-Line CXX. So these are some of my favorites, rod, reel, and line. Stay tuned for next week's video.